Hello, everyone. This is indeed Three Dudes, One Zoom. Today is June 4th. It is 8:30. Wow, we started on time tonight for a lovely night edition. As always, this podcast powered by Anchor.fm. Thanks for them for their sponsorship. You can also listen to us on Spotify. If you want to watch and listen, you can make that mistake and go to YouTube. And you can follow for the latest show updates on Twitter at Three Dudes, One Zoom. Little C's running that, doing a bad job as always. Hopefully one day he'll improve it. We got a little unique show. We're going to dive really deep into one topic because we got special guest John Corey's father.
How you doing, everybody?
And we're going to, the story of Bruiser Brody, more specifically his death and all that happened with it. So we'll just jump right in. Now, John, just a quick question to enlighten people that may not know. Who was Bruiser Brody back then?
Okay. Bruiser Brody, I found this very fascinating. I grew up a wrestling fan. I love all sports. I grew up a wrestling fan, and Bruiser Brody in the mid-'80s to late '80s, he would feud with Abdullah Butcher. He was a big star. He was in the WWF for a while, bounced around. He fought at Madison Square Garden. This was a big star. And then what happened, James? In 1988, over in Puerto Rico, a lot of wrestlers, they go to other states and wrestle, and what happened was in 1988, over in a stadium in Puerto Rico, what happened, he went in the locker room, and all the wrestlers were there. A lot of wrestlers, Tony Atlas, Zeb, Gonzalez, Colon, who was the booker and everything. He walked into the bathroom. He was stabbed. Okay? He fell to the ground, and pretty much this is a forgotten story. Why this man was laying on the ground, bleeding. The wrestler who supposedly did it, Gonzalez, stepped over him, and these wrestlers are all talking about their finishing moves. They're getting together what we're going to do to finish. While this man's laying, dying. And the wrestlers that he's with, like Tony Atlas and them, he's telling them, tell my wife I love him, my son I love him, tell him where the insurance is. Basically, this man is dying, and these people are walking all over him. So it's just they did an episode, Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah, on Vice that was.
And they brought it to light. And I just don't understand how this isn't grabbing more of a story. Listen, you have tragedies. You have Thurman Munson dying in a crash. You have Kobe Bryant dying. But this man was murdered in cold blood while wrestlers are walking over him. And then the wrestlers that helped him, Tony Atlas, Zeb, who actually came back to the WWE a couple of years ago. Yeah. These guys, when they went back to the States, they got their notice after the trial.
Yeah, 10 days after the trial ended.
The trial was ended. This poor man was murdered over there. And this is what I'm saying. I'm surprised nothing ever came.
Yeah. The one thing that when learning about this story, it's this Gonzalez guy who, according to Tony Atlas, is the guy he saw with the knife standing over him. That's where the accusation of him being the murderer comes from. There's two things. It's the whole self-defense argument. I never saw the argument what he was defending himself about. It was they had a dispute, what he claims over a booking, because he handled the booking for them as well.
Yeah, right.
He's like, then I had to defend myself. But there's never an accusation that Brody attacked him.
Yeah. Their saying self-defense was they tried to portray Bruiser Brody. When a wrestler goes in they go into character, and his character was a wild guy, swinging a chain. So basically, their self-defense, they tried to say he was like that all the time.
Yeah,
right.
And you know what I'm saying? And that's where they got it. But it just doesn't make sense, James.
And there was another wrestler who I just learned about, SD Jones.
Right, Special Delivery Jones.
He told someone later on in an interview that Gonzalez told him one day that he was going to kill him because he accused Brody numerous times of being too rough and not listening to the script and taking it to extremes, which caused him to get hurt. And he's like, I'm going to kill that. And he used a lot of expletives one day. But it's definitely it seems planned out. The whole killing him. You go to Puerto Rico, which I was listening to one friend of Brody's. I forget the guy's name, Bart Black, something like that. And he was talking about how, like, this town at the time, which was right outside of San Juan, was a really shady part of town where the stadium was. He's like, if there was a stop sign, you didn't get stopped because your car would get stolen and you would get shot. And it seems like they brought him down there to kill him. But what was the – it can't just be that he was too rough that he would kill him. Why do you think they killed him?
Well, he bought into – he was part of the company. He was like one of the owners. And he wasn't one of the good boys, you know, the Cologne, you know, running with them guys. You know what I'm saying? Because he was going back and forth to the United States. But what you were saying with Cologne being too rough with Gonzalez, the story was in Madison Square Garden, at that time, McMahon was trying to push a Spanish wrestler, which later became, you know, he was pushing that, you know, the Spanish because they had a big Spanish population in the Garden. And he was pushing him, and Bruiser Brody was a star then, so he was kind of threatened. So when they wrestled each other, he beat the shit out. You know, he would deliberately, he wouldn't hold back. He'd go hard on him. But still, that's no reason to take a guy's life. And they say that's why Gonzalez never forgot that. But still, he stabbed him. And they said, one of the reports was, when he stabbed him and Bruiser Brody came out, Gonzalez grabbed him. He had him by the hair, you know, and Bruiser Brody was trying to pull away. Meanwhile, he's bleeding to death. He's literally bleeding. And Gonzalez took another swipe at him with his knife and actually cut his hair off.
Yeah.
And then he fell. It's awful.
And it's very – he, like, brought him into the shower area, the locker room. And apparently, according to – I think it was Tony Atlas, like, he turned water on right away to start washing away evidence and stuff.
Yeah. But Tony Atlas carried him. Carried him to
the hospital.
Which the paramedics were like an hour late and all to get because of traffic and just anti-American feelings.
Well, at that time, they were saying all the paramedics, like, there was a big band. It was before your guys' time. There was a big band, boy band called Menudo. And they were really big. I guess they were at the stadium down the road. And that's where all the paramedics were. And so they didn't get there in time. But you know what I'm saying? This man is bleeding to death, laying on the ground. He's telling the wrestlers who he's with, Tony Atlas and them, I love my wife. I love tell him where's insurance. And these guys, Gonzalez and everybody, they're walking over him and they're going to see when wrestlers, before they go match, they go over their moves. This is what I'm going to do before you do the pin. This way they know. As you know, listen, I like wrestling, but you know, it's scripted. They go over.
Spoiler alert.
Right. Spoiler alert. So while this man was laying on the ground, instead of giving the full attention of trying to get this guy aid, they're going, all right, so I'm going to do this move, and then you're going to do this, and then we'll end it. We'll pin it. And it's just, I don't know how something like this doesn't get that much more attention. This man in the late 80s was you know, he was a WWF guy. He was big, and he was all over.
Tell James what Ric Flair said.
Well, no, Ric Flair kind of, and I like Ric Flair, but Ric Flair made the comment, well, Gonzalez, who supposedly stabbed him, which he did, Gonzalez lost his daughter a couple days earlier. That's no excuse. I
to stab a guy? That's ridiculous.
A parent's never supposed to bury a child, but that doesn't give you a reason to just go out and murder someone. You understand what I'm saying? So Ric Flair totally was in the wrong there, and I like Ric Flair. I remember him back when he wrestled down in the NWA, you know, that with Gordon Soley and him. He was great, but to make a comment like that, stupid.
Now, I have two questions that I think you would probably be able to answer. Because he was big in Japan, too, this Bruiser Brody guy.
Yes.
Was that common for them to go to Puerto Rico, go to Japan? That happened all the time?
They go all over.
Yeah, wrestling's huge in Japan, especially now.
Back before the right before McMahon took over and made it in the 80s, you know, they could really thank Cyndi Lauper and all these guys because they put it on the map with the rock and wrestling. But before all that happened, wrestling had their pockets. You had your wrestling in Georgia. You had your wrestling, you know, all over. So Japan, Puerto Rico, it was all pockets. They all had their territories, different promoters. And then McMahon came along, and give him credit. I know a lot of people don't like him, but you know what? He took wrestling out of the bingo halls and high school auditoriums and put them in arenas and stadiums. So, and I don't like Vince. Listen, they say he treats they said he treats the wrestlers like circus animals. But you know what? He took it to places like, you know, big places. But as far as this, I don't know. I ever since I watched the Dark Side of the Ring with him, I couldn't believe what I just seen. And
so what was
never brought back up on charges?
In 1978, what was Vince? Was he like in control of like one like federation or
His father used to run it. He was an announcer, and they used to be on Saturday nights. They used to come on at 12 o'clock. And I remember staying up late, trying to wait, and sometimes I'd pass out, and then it used to be on from 12 to 1, and then 1 o'clock they'd have the horse racing, and I'd wake up, I'd fall asleep, I'd wake up at the horse race, I'd be so mad, just the whole time to watch it, and I'd wake up and see the horse race. Back then, they just were on Saturdays, 1 hour, and then, like I said, in the 80s, with all this, with Cyndi, like I said, they could thank Cyndi Lauper, because Cyndi Lauper became a big star. And at that time, remember the song "Girls Just Want to Have Fun"? Remember that song? Captain Lou Albano was in a video, and that's all they needed. Then all of a sudden, Captain saying he was manager in this, and then they went on Piper's Pit. Before you know it, Hogan came in, Mr. T came in, Muhammad Ali came in, and that's how WrestleMania
Hogan
was
being
born.
in Rocky was big too.
And when Hulk Hogan was in Rocky, Vince McMahon, he went cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. He seen the Golden Goose from Rocky 3, Thunder Lips.
So Bruiser Brody's in the Hall of Fame, right? I read that.
Yeah, and so is Cologne, the guy who was booking the shows.
So how did this guy get murdered at a wrestling event, get in the Hall of Fame, and then this not become a big story? That doesn't.
Is he really in the Hall of Fame?
I'm just about positive.
I read somewhere that he's in some Hall of Fame.
I know Cologne is the guy that was the booker. He's still booking in Puerto Rico.
Oh, he's in a legacy. Yeah.
There had to be there was a ceremony for him, right? So how does that not get brought up at the ceremony? Like it doesn't make and this whole story. It's like
it makes no sense.
They brought him to Puerto Rico, like that, and apparently I went deep into like the conspiracy.
I'm glad you
theories,
did. It's fascinating, isn't it?
And it's apparently he was so big in Japan that the Japanese mob called the Puerto Rican mob and said if Gonzalez leaves the island, or they said if he leaves the rock, he's a dead man. And that's because he's never left Puerto Rico. He still lives in Puerto Rico since that day.
Yeah.
I read a whole thing about how like the Japanese mob wanted to kill this guy. It's like, because he was like apparently the biggest wrestler in Japan in the late 70s. Yeah. Like he was the guy. And it's unreal how this, like, how the guy somewhere, and he was huge in the United States, especially in the Northeast.
Like I said, he wrestled in the corner. And do you know, here's another thing. Vega was his last name. I watched him with Jim Cornette, and he seen the whole thing too. And he was down low with Bruce. He was down, when Bruiser Brody was dying, he was down low. He was one of the people Brody was talking to while he was sucking his last breath of air. And do you know, Teddy Atlas, who was if you're really fascinated with this story, look at Dark Side of the Ring. Teddy Atlas goes in detail. I mean, Tony Atlas.
Teddy's the boxer guy.
Tony Atlas, when he was giving his deposition to the cop in the locker room, the Gonzalez, his brother, was the translator because the cop didn't speak English. So Tony Atlas was
the guy.
Tony Atlas was actually talking to Gonzalez's brother, and then Gonzalez's brother would relay to the cop. That's how they get into that position. Well, when that was going on, Gonzalez, who stabbed him, made a comment, and that Vega heard him. He goes, this motherfucker better watch what he's saying because I'll do it to him too. You know, when he was listening to what he was saying, giving his deposition, and he said he better watch it because he's going to get it next.
And I was reading that during the whole, like, the immediate post after the murder, everything going on, there was someone translating for the cops, and because the cops didn't speak English, there was someone in English who's like, don't tell him that. Don't tell him that. And he was like coaching them of all of them of what to say to the cops. Yeah. So it's like, it can't just be Gonzalez that wanted this guy dead.
Yeah.
It had to be like a whole orchestrated thing from the top down. Like,
Cologne was the booker.
Yeah.
Cologne was the guy, what you call the booker. He books the show there. And I heard in an angle, they just did an angle in Puerto Rico. I think I heard the guy you listen to say it.
It's a rival podcast.
Cologne and Gonzalez did an angle. Oh, I'm going to get you back for what happened. You know, they mentioned they used the Bruiser Brody murder as part of their wrestling angle, which is crazy.
I saw a whole thing on that, and they've been condemned and stuff. There was a whole like outcry, but I just don't see. It's like it makes
nothing adds up. It's like it's just a bunch of weird, different stories.
He was killed, murdered, whatever. He was killed.
That's it.
The guy was acquitted. The story dies.
That was it.
Nothing new.
And the witnesses that were going to go for Bruiser Brody Get letters
Do you
in the
think
mail
that was
after the
intentional?
trial's over.
Do you
The
think?
trial's over.
yeah.
Do you
Huh?
think that was intentional? Not mailing
Absolutely.
out yeah.
Absolutely.
I thought the same thing when I was looking it over because
Tony
it's
Atlas
U.S.
said he
mail.
would have went in a heartbeat. Tony Atlas would have went in a heartbeat.
Well, they all said that they would. They just got the
Yeah.
depositions late, so you couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And the guy Gonzalez never testified. The lawyer was the only one that talked from his side the entire time and painted him as this golden boy. And he kept saying how much bigger Brody was than him. And it's like he was in fear.
They portrayed him as this insane guy, and it was self-defense. It was just absolutely insane.
I read another conspiracy. I was on this whole wrestling conspiracy theory page.
No, it's a fascinating story.
There's a bunch of weirdos in wrestling now. Where it's like they built up his character as extra crazy in the months leading up to that to lead up to the murder. Like to show to the public that he was going crazier and crazier and crazier. That way when they killed him, they could be like, no, he actually had issues.
That's nuts.
It was all planned.
So what it's not the WWF. Who was in charge of that part of wrestling? That
was an independent wrestling. And that Cologne was the booker, and I said, he's in the WWE Hall of Fame too, which I'm surprised. But
so this had to be a whole thing from the independent wrestling company from the top down to kill him.
Yeah, because Bruiser Brody, I heard, was getting in on it. He was going to be one of the owners.
Right. Yeah. I don't think they wanted him in on it, and then they offed him.
Right. Along with
because he would have made the most because he was the biggest name.
Right.
Because all these other guys that fought down there, they had some careers, but they fizzled out, especially after he died.
Yeah, he was gonna. If he didn't die, he was gonna go on. You would have heard a lot more of him.
How old was he when he died?
But
he was let's see, 42. 42.
Oh. Yeah, he's had.
Yeah.
What?
June 18th, 1946 to July 17th, 1988. 42.
Yeah, he still had years left in him. I just find it a very. You talk about getting away with murder. That's the perfect.
I just don't see how
I don't know how it disappears. He
was a star in the U.S. To wrestling fans, now how big was he in terms of today's wrestlers? Would you say?
Well,
I saw someone compare him to Lesnar.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Popularity-wise,
I don't know.
No, I saw it not as personality-wise, not as popularity.
Him and
hardcore wrestling fans, how they view him.
Listen, they couldn't have him and Abdul the Butcher feuding in today's wrestling. That is, these guys used to bleed from the time they got out of the locker room. He'd be hitting with a chain.
Bruiser Brody came out with a big chain. And
they said Bruiser was the first guy to normalize that kind of wrestling where there was blood. He went out there looking to make people himself and the other guy.
Him and Abdul the Butcher went hand in hand. Him and Abdul the Butcher went hand in hand. These guys were actually. They could never wrestle today.
Not big leagues, maybe independent, small, CCW is a big
AEW, that new league. Would he be welcome?
Not with that wrestling. Maybe
this is all it's all I don't know.
Kid friendly.
Yeah, it's all he'd be an outcast. Yeah, listen, Abdul the Butcher. I remember the guy used to have pull a fork out and he started raking you right. That's when I enjoyed that. That's when wrestling was wrestling.
Was the Hogan era like that with Ric
Flair?
Hogan, or was it an in between of the two?
That was before the Hogan. That's when you had strap matches, dog collar matches, the steel cage match. Back in that day, steel cage match. The ref's job, he wasn't even in the ring. A referee's job was to do one thing: open the door when you wanted to get out, or close the door. Now in a steel cage, the ref's in the ring. He counts. You can get pinned in a steel cage, which is unbelievable. Years ago, when the only way to win in a steel cage if you climb up it and get out, or you tell the ref open the door and get out.
I think we need to open up a wrestling league with him running it, all steel cage matches.
So when did wrestling change from was it when McMahon took over that he tried to make it more family oriented?
Yeah,
100%.
So there would be all these different federations and stuff. They would all play by their own rules, and there was ones that were more family friendly, one that were more it. Okay.
And then McMahon came and made it. He saw it with Hogan and say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and
so would Bruiser Brody would have lasted in McMahon's world?
He would have had to tone it down.
Yeah.
He would have had to really tone it down. He would have stayed. down south with Gordon Soley, all them. But you know what? Eventually they sold out too. They all became the WCW, which competed with the WWF, and they pretty much were the same type. They just wanted ratings and make it family thing. So Bruiser Brody would have had a tough time.
He could have went to ECW.
Well, yeah, but he would have had a tough time fitting in. He would eventually die out because that they don't want that. They don't want that.
You're obviously a big Ric Flair, like Hulk Hogan guy. Would you say that era is the biggest for wrestling? Or would you say it's more the Bruiser Brody, this rough and tumble, like anything goes type thing?
Just show his crotch.
Me personally, I enjoyed that wrestling a lot better. Okay, I enjoyed watching. I remember watching Roddy Piper in a dog collar match with Greg Valentine. He actually lost his hearing. That was the Piper I knew. And then Piper came to the WWF, and
mellowed out.
And that's when he became famous with the Piper's Payday. But the Piper I knew was back down in the South, dog collar matches. That's when I enjoyed that wrestling. You can say what you want, but as a kid, I enjoyed watching that.
So it was still scripted though, right?
Absolutely.
But was there more free like license given where it's like, hey, if it's like rough them up a bit, was that encouraged or was it just kind of like?
They pretty much go. I always said, yes, wrestling is scripted, no doubt, but the holes are real, okay? The holes are real, and wrestlers are athletes. They are athletes. These guys, there's no off nights. These guys do this day in and day out. These guys do it almost every day of the week.
For sure.
And a lot of these guys, Macho Man Savage played AAA baseball. A lot of these, Dwayne Johnson played for the Miami Hurricanes.
Lesnar, UFC.
Right.
I mean, even Bruiser Brody was in the college football, tried to make it in the NFL.
A lot of these guys are athletes. I know it's fake, but a lot of these are athletes. They really are.
Now, James, last episode, or was it? It was our last episode or 2 episodes ago. You said that John Cena is the biggest star, or the best thing.
I said mainstream media. The face of the WWE is Cena, and he's the best thing they've had.
He's bigger than Hogan was.
I'm not to wrestling fans, but to your average person that doesn't watch wrestling, Cena's the face of wrestling.
Yeah.
Well, it's a different era, but John Cena. Let me tell you something about John Cena. John Cena has granted more Make-A-Wish foundations than any athlete in the world.
He's the best face you could have.
More than anybody. He's granted more Make-A-Wish than any athlete. Football, basketball, baseball, hockey, he's granted more than any.
He's a great guy.
Publicly, for an organization in any sport, you could argue that Cena's been the best, to represent the WWE. No one's represented their sport, their organization better than Cena. That's especially in the mainstream world. To people that don't watch wrestling, people know who John Cena is from the Make-A-Wish, from all the other things.
Yeah.
Do you think Cena's bigger than Hogan?
It's different. Hogan. Let me tell you something.
I think The Rock's bigger than both of them.
No, Hogan was the biggest star ever. I've seen Mike Tyson fight in the Garden. I've seen playoff hockey in the Garden. I've seen the loudest I've ever been in Madison Square Garden, believe it or not, was when Hogan was Hogan coming out defending his title. You would not believe. And then when he came from there and you seen him point, it was the loudest I've been. And I've been in the Garden for playoff games. Like I said, I saw Tyson fight. The loudest I've ever been. Hogan, he took it to mainstream with Vince McMahon. He really did. Mm-hmm. And in WrestleMania 3, look at that crowd with him and Andre. Look at it. At that time, it was the biggest, over 93,000 people. You sit there and look at the crowd. They're there to watch him and Andre. It's unbelievable. Over 93,000 people at that time. And they're staring at it. It's a famous picture of them two staring at each other. And it's unbelievable.
So, who's the greatest wrestler ever, then, in your opinion? Overall.
Are you talking about, star power? Actually, wrestling?
Everybody's got their favorite.
It's like this. If you're going to tell the story of WWE, this is the first guy you got to know. Who's a wrestler? Obviously, Vince is, the guy.
I know.
If you're talking about the first, you're going to talk about how it started. But,
I'm saying,
who has the biggest impact?
Yeah, who's the biggest?
I say Steve Austin. My dad doesn't want to hear that.
Well, if someone say everyone who's ever wrestled walked into a room, who's the one guy that could walk in there and everyone would be like, oh shit, look who just walked in.
I think
Hogan's a piece of shit.
But I think the reason these guys are making all the money is from Hogan. I think that era put it if you ever watch Madison Square Garden's favorite moments,
I've seen that with
the guard, and you see that with Jimmy Hart and all them, they just looked out and they couldn't believe it. They saw closed circuit TVs and all that. This was Hogan really, McMahon promoted, but the star was Hogan. Hogan took them, him and Cyndi Lauper, they took them to places. The wrestlers are getting their salaries because of Hogan.
Now, who's this? The Cyndi Lauper. Who's that exactly?
She was a singer. She's just a singer who was, like I said, she still sings. She has a lot of old time hits, time after time. And like I said, when she was popular in the 80s, Captain Lou Albano was a famous manager in the WWF. You ever hear Captain Lou Albano?
From you, I've heard of him.
Right. Well, he was personal friends with Cyndi Lauper, and Cyndi Lauper had him in all her videos. So right away, and I don't know whose idea it was, probably Vince's, the angle starts, the wheels got turned, and they were guests in Piper's Pit. And Captain Lou said, I wrote the songs, I'm the star, not you. So then it was, she said, okay, I'm going to get a wrestling on. That's when Hogan got involved. So that's how it all started.
He
was a referee.
This is like, well, we can move on to hockey after in a little bit, just to get. This is like my final question. Do you consider Vince McMahon to be the not like personality wise, just like what he was able to do, the greatest like single promoter or greatest guy to ever take over a single like thing and make it like huge? Is he the best at that?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, James. You know why? Because you know who Ted Turner is.
Yeah.
Ted Turner broadcast, owner of the Atlanta Braves.
TNT.
Right. Ted Turner called up Vince McMahon. And he goes, hey, Vince, I'm in the wrestling business. Because Ted Turner bought NWA, AWA, and AWA and all that. He made WCW. So he called Vince up. And he told Vince, I'm in the wrestling business. And Vince told him, he goes, good, Ted. I'm in the entertainment business. I'm going to run you out of business. Sure enough, he ran Ted Turner out of business.
Yeah.
Ted Turner said it was harder to beat Vince McMahon than to win the World Series.
He was beating him for a long time, though.
Huh?
He was beating him for a long time.
Yeah, but in the end, who won?
Stone Cold.
In the end, who won?
You and Stone Cold are weird.
Ted Turner said it was easier to win a World Series than it was to beat Vince McMahon. So
I believe Vince is. I mean, how old's Vince now? It's like little, like they're still young. There's like teenagers who like want to be like.
He's
Vince.
still in great shape.
I know, but he's got to be 70, right?
Oh, easy.
He might even be 80.
Like it's insane. His staying power to stay relevant and to stay like as like a guy people want to be is pretty impressive.
Yeah, 74.
Yeah, his daughter runs it now.
Yeah, but he's still
his daughter and Triple H. They do a lot of it, and they pretty much they pretty much.
We need Shane McMahon.
They did away.
Shane, I like.
Hey, it was
Shane.
good. I'm
He
glad
jumps off really high things. I like that guy. Yeah.
I'm glad I got this.
All right, so we'll switch over to hockey since John is a big good mute button. That's the first time someone's actually muted it in time. Little sick.
No, I need a drink of water. That's what I need.
You've been going nonstop, Johnny.
Yeah.
So we'll keep you
I should have
going.
bought water.
What's it called? We'll switch over to the NHL. John, like straight up, do you think they're playing this year now? With the whole.
I still don't think they're playing, and I don't think baseball's playing either, James.
Baseball is a disaster. It's billionaires and millionaires. It's the same as '94. It's like who wants to get richer right now?
Yeah.
It's terrible.
I don't see it happening.
I saw a new thing that Vegas put out. It's like 5th best odds to win the Stanley Cup, the New York Rangers.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's like
anybody could do it.
It's a
anybody can win.
They said I saw an argument that someone was making. It's like the Rangers have a lot of young kids that haven't done anything, so they'll be just fired up to play. And a lot of
the odds are
guys,
Kakko is playing, by the way.
I saw.
Yeah,
that,
I just don't.
But I heard if there's a flare up because of the protests, they'll definitely. It's a high chance he won't. But it's.
I mean, what if? See, my thing is, what if he doesn't play and then they bring up like Elias Anderson and he goes like on a run? What are you gonna do with him?
Well, he's still your number 2 pick from the previous year. You're still gonna keep Elias at most. Even if he were to flare up, I don't think you're gonna look at Elias and be like, all right, I've seen this over 3 years. And I've seen this in 20 games. I don't think that 20 games going to override that 3 years. So I still think if he scores 30 points and breaks like Crosby's records and stuff, then I'll talk about it. But
I think the Rangers are going to beat Carolina if they play.
They're scared.
I think they're going to beat them.
Did you see that Carolina wanted to change the series to be for the play-in? They have to win 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. That's all locker room stuff that Quinn's going to put on the message board for the Rangers locker. Like, they don't want us.
They're going to get pumped.
There's 2 series I really feel confident in. I feel the Rangers are going to beat Carolina. This if they do play. Who knows? I feel the Rangers are going to beat Carolina, and I also feel very confident Columbus is going to beat Toronto.
No.
I when I first saw that matchup, I was like, that's bad for Toronto. Hard work, because they're going to show up to what? They're not going to show up to play. They're going to show up to outwork the Leafs, which is something the Leafs never do.
Yeah.
But I saw another thing with Tavares saying that, like, playing, it's like we got the toughest matchup in the playing games. It's like Columbus is going to grind us. Tavares is talking up the Blue Jackets, which is something the Leafs never did. The Leafs would always talk about, like, we have talent, we have skill. Well, but Tavares is admitting, he's like, we got to toughen up if we want to beat these guys. So I think that helps the Maple Leafs.
The interesting thing, it's not that series. What I find, like, one of the series I'm going to pay close attention to is Montreal and Pittsburgh, because if Carey Price can play like Carey Price, they got a real good shot. They're the lowest seed.
Against an older Pittsburgh team. Like,
they're the lowest
seed,
seed
guys, but it's like those older guys haven't played since what, the end of February, beginning of March?
True.
I don't know.
Bobrovsky could steal a series from the Islanders if he ever played.
Who?
Bobrovsky.
John, we got Bob. There you go.
Bob.
Am I right? He could steal. This guy hasn't been good. He hasn't been good all year long.
Oh, the Islanders have been falling off, too.
Sooner or later, you think he might show up and play a good series.
But the Islanders are well coached.
Yeah, but so
that's the thing. Yeah,
Florida has a pretty good coach too.
I'm aware, but they have to prove it before I have faith in them. They've never. Every time it's like, show me, and they've always disappointed. Especially
they're almost like Toronto. They're almost like the Maple Leafs. Florida.
Except they're not in a big market, so they don't get the heat.
They're mirror images of each other.
Chicago and Edmonton's going to be all off. You're not going to see defense or goalie in that.
7-5 some game.
Edmonton should beat them.
Yeah. Edmonton should. I mean, McDavid and Draisaitl should just, like, overpower their defense every game.
Watch out for Patty Kane, though.
Yeah.
But they see, I feel like Taves matches up great against McDavid because Taves is, like, he's not as good a scorer anymore. He's not as good in the offensive zone, but he can lock guys down in defense.
Yeah, but McDavid's the fastest player in the NHL. He's going to blow anyone away.
There's a guy that can beat him without playing dirty. It's Taves. I think Kessler can beat him still.
Kessler can't play anymore.
But Kessler in his own zone is still a very good center. He's very good.
Isn't he, like, injured?
Yeah, he was last. I mean, Anaheim, they're not even in it, right?
And the Coyotes in Nashville, that's a toss-up.
Yeah. Did you see – we got 3 minutes left. Did you see Max Kellerman's comments? That no one watches hockey.
It's bad.
I don't watch ESPN. That's why I'm not a big.
But I
stopped watching ESPN years ago. I stopped.
He's not wrong. He was talking TV ratings. It's every sport.
He's not wrong, but like it's.
He's there. ESPN is there not to talk hockey because they don't have nothing to do with hockey. They don't have their rights. If you notice now,
ESPN Plus bought rights to ESPN Plus bought rights to show out-of-market games.
But I'm saying their TV, they don't have. So they only talk about who they have. They never talk about And when UFC was with Fox, you never heard them talking about them. Now they talk about UFC all the time because they don't have because they have. So ESPN basically they'll cover three sports: basketball, UFC because then they have them do, and football because they have Monday Night Football.
Yeah,
they won't talk about anything. They're not going to talk about race car. They're not going to talk about
very rare
hockey. They're going to. That's not because they have no thing. That's why I'm hoping Fox and F1 take over.
They're climbing. They're buying up everyone.
Cowards over right.
Yeah.
I hope they run ESPN out of business because I'm done. It used to be good years ago, but it stinks now.
I hate ESPN.
All their good guys left for NBC and Fox.
Right. It was good with Dan Patrick and Rich Eisen and all them back in the day. It stinks now. I won't even watch it. And Max Kellerman, you know what? Just stick to boxing. He's not even that great in boxing either.
I agree with that.
He said that McGregor wouldn't land one punch.
He landed 11.
I think
he's a big Giant fan, though.
Mayweather carried him, though. Mayweather ain't stupid.
Yeah, he made it a show for sure.
Right. What was he going to do? If he was going to rip him up in a couple of rounds and people say he carried him. I don't like Mayweather. I don't like that fight. And I was a Roberto Duran guy, man. I'll never forget when we all went to see Leonard Duran pay-per-view. And when Duran beat him, that was the second fight. Again, I don't know what happened. But that's when boxing was boxing. Now, Mayweather, guys like Mayweather and stuff you could have. You could have.
We're in our final minute here, Johnny, so I'm going to have to cut you short. One last news that just came out, though. Speaking of race cars, is they're going to let fans in June 12th.
Chase Elliott just got the pole.
I know. I saw that thing. 500 servicemen and women will be given free tickets to attend the race on June 12th and 13th.
Wow.
That's
so
awesome. That's NASCAR
That's a
for
good
you.
move by
Real
NASCAR.
quick, do I have a minute?
You got 15 seconds, Johnny.
Okay. College football, they want to bring in fans 6 feet apart. I
Yeah.
seen someone say if they do that, it's going to take them longer to get out of the stadium
That's a
than it is
fact.
for the actual game.
And 5 Alabama players tested positive today for COVID-19.
And a
That's really
Pittsburgh Penguins fan.
We got 10
Pittsburgh Penguins
seconds.
player.
Thank you all for listening. Check us out next
Thanks.
time. Thanks, Johnny, for
It was
coming
a
on. It was a
pleasure.
great show.
It was a